to Very Vegan with Terry. I am Terry. Today we're going to do a lasagna, and I just want to show you how lasagna doesn't have to have meat or cheese in it to be very, very tasty. I made this recipe first for a potluck we were having a couple months ago, and it was such a hit. Nobody could tell it was vegan, and I had so many people asking me for the recipe that I thought it would be a good idea to share this with you. So let's get started. First, we're going to do our marinara sauce because this lines the bottom of our pan. So we want to make that first. Okay, we're going to start with 1 can of some kind of tomatoes. It doesn't have any kind of salt or anything added. When you look at the ingredients, you just want it to say tomatoes. So we're going to pour that into our blender or our Vitamix, whichever you have. You can also use a food processor. Very carefully, these are whole tomatoes, so these are going to splat on me if I'm not careful. We have 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, 3 tablespoons of coconut aminos. Coconut aminos are like a soy sauce, except that they're a lot less sodium in there than soy sauce does. If you look at soy sauce, it has an incredible amount of sodium in there. So when you use these coconut aminos, it's maybe a quarter of the sodium content. So there's 3 tablespoons of that, 2 cloves of garlic, a half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes. You have a tablespoon of chili powder, a teaspoon of onion powder, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a half a teaspoon of cumin, and 2 tablespoons of basil. As you know, all food, it's all in the seasoning, so it's just as good as the seasonings you put in it. So I'm going to dump that all in. Just mix it up. All right, and there's your marinara sauce. So that's going to go in the bottom of our pan. And just dump the whole thing in, because this is going to make the base for our lasagna. You're going to need to make another one of these for the layers. I find that I end up making 2 batches of these for the entire recipe. But, you know, if you find something that works better for you, if you have a smaller pan, whatever it might be, you might be able to get away with one. But I found for me, it works best to do these in 2 separate batches just because of the way that they're all layers. There's that. Next, we're going to make our quote-unquote cheese layer. So we're going to start with 2 cans of cannelli beans. These are just white beans, or kind of like the white kidney beans. Now these are 2 cans. I bought the low sodium variety. I also drained them and rinsed them because that helps to get rid of any extra sodium that might be floating around. So we're going to dump that into our food processor. Next, we have a cup of cashews. You can also use hemp seeds or pine nuts if you have a nut allergy. We have a 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is the vegan's best friend because it makes things taste cheesy and delicious and just wonderful. We have a 1/4 cup of miso. Miso is like your wonton soup type flavoring, that kind of thing. So it just adds a little extra flavor. Now there is some sodium in miso, but that's okay because a little bit's better than a lot. And we've got a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. So we're going to mix all this up until it looks like a ricotta. It's starting to come together, but it needs to be smushed down a little bit. And you don't want it smooth, like smooth. You just want it chunky enough to be like a ricotta or cottage cheese type texture. It does not need to be all the way smooth. So if it's not, don't worry about it. But I am going to give this one more little blend because there are some decent sized chunks of beans in there still. Now we're going to add in 2 pounds of chopped spinach. Now this was frozen at one point. I let it thaw and then I squeezed out the majority of the water because the last thing you want is soggy lasagna. So I'm going to dump that in a little bit at a time. I'm going to smoosh that down, get that blended. All right, we're also going to add just a little bit of basil. Also need 1/4 teaspoon of red chili flakes. Now red chili flakes just gives it a little heat, a little extra flavor. Just dump that in. We're going to give it one more good blend. And another smoosh or 2. Let's get everything all nicely blended. Yeah, it's going to look green, but that's okay. It tastes really good. And ultimately, that's what matters. It almost looks like pesto. Okay, so that's our cheese / veggie layer. So next we're going to do the meat layer, which we're going to use portobello mushrooms. Gives you a lot of protein and You can't not taste the meat. I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong. You can't tell that there's no meat in this. Do that next. We're ready to make our meat layer. What we're going to do is we are going to heat up 2 tablespoons of water or a 1/4 cup. I usually just do a 1/4 cup because I can remember the amount, and just pour that into our pan, which is nice and hot. We're going to add a red onion, and we're going to let that cook until the onion gets translucent or like clear. It will change color. You'll definitely be able to tell that it's got a different color. And that's going to take, I don't know, 3 to 4 minutes, depending on your pan and how hot you have it. Have your oven on or your stove on. So we're going to give that a few minutes. All right, that's looking good. I'm going to add in a big container of sliced mushrooms. I use the baby bellas because the portobello mushrooms have just a little bit more protein in them than the regular ones do. And don't worry about the pan being dry at this point, because the mushrooms as they cook are going to release a lot of moisture. My dog is tapping on the window because he wants to go out. We have 2 cloves of garlic and a 1/4 cup of tamari. Tamari is a gluten-free soy sauce. And I usually look for the lower sodium one, but it just depends on you. But know that the tamari is gluten-free, whereas regular soy sauce is not. So if gluten's an issue for you, be on the lookout for tamari instead of soy sauce, and just a 1-for-1 substitution. Okay, so I'm gonna let these cook until the water comes out, the moisture comes out of these mushrooms, and they look brown and glazed. And my dog is still tapping on the window, so I'm gonna let him out while these cook. All right, you see that these are starting to brown, where there's still a lot of moisture in there. So it's gonna take a few more minutes. All right, now we're starting to get some there. You can see that the moisture is starting to get soaked up. Let's take a couple more minutes, and you can put this lasagna together. Yeah, that's looking a lot better. Yeah, in fact, I think I can turn this off and move it back over to the counter so we can put this lasagna together. Because you know it's going to continue to cook in the hot pan for just a moment or two, and that's all it really needs. Okay, we're ready to put this together. So we have our marinara sauce on the bottom of our pan. Then we're going to take some no-bake lasagna noodles. You can get these at the store. Just look for something that says oven ready or no bake, your choice. And just layer that on right on top of the sauce. That's why I love this recipe, because I don't have to make the noodles on top of everything else. Fill in these rows. You might want to just snap these in half to fit your pan. Next, we're going to take our bean and cheese layer. We're going to take like half of this, half of what we made, and we're just going to layer it on the noodles. Okay, now we're going to take half of our mushroom layer. You can see that the moisture is like gone. We're going to take half of that. Okay, now we're going to do another layer of noodles. Now we're going to put the rest. Probably heard my dog sigh just now. He's bored. Okay, now we're going to do the rest of our mushroom mixture. You definitely want to use a 9x13 pan for this, because it will go all the way to the top. Okay, now 1 more layer of noodles. And we're going to pour the rest of our marinara sauce on here. And make sure that you get all of those noodles covered with sauce, because they will dry out in the oven otherwise. And I usually just take my mushroom spoon and just kind of get over all these noodles, kind of get that evenly. And then very, very carefully, we're going to put this into the oven, in a 375-degree oven for an hour. Say hi to everybody in YouTube land. This is Cake. He's a miniature schnauzer. He's 4 years old, and he is my shadow. Aren't you, bud? So say hi. All right, that's our lasagna. I hope you enjoyed. And if you like what you saw, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button and subscribe so you can be notified of future videos.